Hello and welcome to India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. As always, this is the show that gets you the news, the views and perspectives on stories that matter. First up, as always, we start with the headlines.
As the Prime Minister has said, and would like to repeat his words, terror and talks cannot go together. Terror and trade cannot go together, and water and blood cannot flow together.
India rejects Shahbaz Sharif's call for talks on Indus Water Treaty. Kashmir and terrorism underlines terrorism and trade cannot go together. Water and blood will not flow together. New Delhi's strong response to Shahbaz Sharif's overtures. Dhaka Acquits 1971 butcher as Muhammad Yunus calls peace elusive in Japan. Azharul Islam, convicted of war crimes during the 1971 war, including hundreds of rapes and murders, walks a free man. Russia proposes peace talks. Is it progress or is it yet another ploy by Vladimir Putin? The first round of talks reached no agreement. Second round slated for the 2nd of June. The Trump versus Harvard row continues to escalate. NDTV reports from Harvard University gets you voices of students who've been impacted in and caught in the crossfire. Nvidia CEO warns that Chinese AI rivals are now formidable. Are US export restrictions aiding China's rise in AI, and have all previous measures all but failed? We decode. Our big story this Thursday on India Global, viewers. As Dhaka continues to be in a state of complete flux, justice, it seems, has been turned on its head. Azharul Islam, a top leader of Jamaat-e-Islami, convicted of rape, torture, mass murder, genocide during the 1971 Liberation War, has been acquitted by the Supreme Court in Bangladesh. The charges were staggering: 1,256 civilians massacred. Hundreds, or in fact 13 women have been raped, is the charge against him. Villages torched, lives shattered. The International Crimes Tribunal sentenced him to death in 2014. That judgment is now reversed. The court saying effectively, let him walk. Let's be clear, Jamaat-e-Islami opposed Bangladesh's independence. They collaborated with the Pakistani military, aiding and abetting the genocide that came in after which India started and became part of the Liberation War. Islam was one of their commanders in Rangpur. Now he's no longer being called out a butcher, but being painted as a victim. This ruling comes as Dhaka descends into anarchy. Since the ouster of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in August 2024, the capital has seen daily clashes, student-led uprisings, and a judiciary that is now stripped of complete trust. He wasn't the only one. In another stunning twist, a journalist convicted for plotting to murder Hasina's son was also acquitted the very same day. The timing is no coincidence, viewers. The message unthinkable. Old enemies of liberation are back in power. With Islam's release, Bangladesh has taken a step backward by decades. Not towards healing, but unfortunately towards revisionism, towards violence, towards betrayal. The martyrs of 1971 cry for justice. Tonight, that justice is nowhere to be found. Smriti Patnaik, research fellow at MPI-DSA, joins me to talk more on this. Smriti, what's happening with Bangladesh? Why is it that convicts are now being freed up and they're walking as free people?
Jurisdiction, appellate court of the Supreme Court had already allowed the revision petition to be filed. In spite of the fact that Supreme Court in 2019 had given a decision had given a death sentence to Azharul Islam. So when this particular thing was allowed, that he was allowed to make an appeal against the judgment, that point of time, it was very, very clear that it was a matter of time that he's going to get free. And as you already explained, that we know the situation has changed in Bangladesh. We also know that the dominant political parties, especially the Jamaat-e-Islami, which played a very significant role during the student movement, has an upper hand in this particular administration. And this verdict is significant in two aspects. First is that the Jamaat will continue to argue that all its political leaders who have already been hanged, 7 of them, actually were hanged for political reasons, and there is no proof by the government to prove that they were convicted in any kind of war crime. Second is Azharul Islam's, as you have seen, he attended a rally today with the Jamaat Amir, and where it was very clearly said that he was wrongly convicted, and therefore, this second liberation, quote unquote, second liberation.
Convicted by international court. He is being convicted by international tribunals of hundreds of rapes, hundreds of murders. Someone who had a very deep link to play in the genocide that led to the 1971 Liberation War, didn't it? And how is it that man suddenly finds sympathizers in Yunus's regime? That's what it's looking like.
See, the International Tribunal was established by Sheikh Hasina, and if you look at the manner in which some of the time the witnesses were collected, so it was made controversial over the period of time.
Smriti, you're almost sounding like it was a political decision. Is that what you're sounding it like? That it was a political decision under Sheikh Hasina?
But my question is that 2019, when he got the death sentence, why his death sentence was not implemented by Sheikh Hasina, and why in 2025 he was allowed to file an appeal? There is, at least 5 years for Hasina to implement the verdict of the Supreme Court. Why it was not done? Why it was left? I have not been able to understand that.
So what you're saying is that there were political reasons why Azharul Islam wasn't executed despite being given the death penalty. And despite all of that, but as any citizen of a country, you are within your rights to get the all legal avenues that are available to you. So the legal avenue that was available to him was the Appellate Tribunal. Maybe he was waiting for that. That's part of the legal process of the country. But what I'm really trying to come back to is the fact that this is a Bangladesh where radicals are being mainstreamed. This is a Bangladesh where Islamists are now part of the political class, and you have people accused of conducting genocide, walking out as a free person. This is the new Bangladesh under Muhammad Yunus.
Yes, I agree. In fact, the kind of thing which has happened post Sheikh Hasina's removal, we have seen the Islamist political parties have been mainstreamed, especially the Jamaat-e-Islami is playing a significant role. There was also demand for a new national anthem in Bangladesh. We have seen Sheikh Mujibur's statue was dismantled, his house was bulldozed. So many things are happening which is actually contrary to what the Liberation War stood for. We are also seeing the Constitutional Reform Commission is, has a suggestion to do away with secularism and incorporate pluralism. So there are many of the things which is happening in Bangladesh actually are certain things which will definitely concern those people who fought for the liberation, and many of them are, keeping quiet, thinking that there may be reprisal, they may be accused that they are supporter of Army League. So there is general dissatisfaction regarding the manner in which things are shaping up. I'll just give an example. Yesterday, there were certain social media posts. People who have been supportive of the student movement are clearly saying that they will never support NCP for its tacit understanding with the Islamists, especially after Azharul Islam's, after his freedom.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there, Smriti. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully next time you're not going to be in a car and you're going to be joining us here in the studios. All right, I'm going to shift focus now and talk more about, Russia and the Russian-Ukrainian war that continues to wage. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has proposed a new round of peace talks with Ukraine to be held in Istanbul on the 2nd of June. This follows a failed attempt earlier this month when both sides left without having any sort of a ceasefire in place. Lavrov said that Moscow expects that a formal response from Kiev and stressed that Russia is prepared to discuss all points of a potential ceasefire agreement. The proposal comes just days after Vladimir Putin spoke with his American counterpart Donald Trump, who has been pushing for some sort of a diplomatic resolution to try and end Europe's deadliest war that's been going on for, well, over the last 3 years. It's the longest since the Second World War. And there's been no official response till now as to which way it is headed. There's no official response from Ukraine yet, but Moscow has said that both sides have agreed to bring their own versions of a potential peace settlement plan to the table. Are we looking at a possibility of some sort of peace deal that could come in, or is it going to be a repeat of exactly what happened in the first round of talks, when things looked like they were progressing, only to fall flat? Rajoli Siddharth joins us from ORF. Rajoli, how do you read the fact that there is yet another attempt for peace? How much do you think it has a promise right now?
I think so that you see all talks basically for ending wars take time. For instance, even if you look at the Vietnam conflict, the talks began in 1969, 1968, and in the war, US finally left in 1973. So I think talks do take time, and even though the negotiations failed on May 15th, I don't think that the June 2 negotiations will be substantial in any way, even though they say that there's going to be a substantial discussion and both are going to exchange memorandums. I think that potentially bringing an end to this war will take some more time, and the negotiations, as there is a fundamental dissonance in their own demands, so it's going to take time for both sides to come to an agreement. So I think that it's just going to be another round of discussions where both sides are going to reiterate their demands, and that's pretty much it.
Rajoli, hopefully we'll be able to speak on the 2nd of June with some sort of possibility of a peace deal. All right, on that note, viewers, we're going to slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side with lots more news, including whether or not the chip war that US unleashed on China, has it had any of the desired consequences. Stay with us. Nvidia CEO, viewers, warns that Chinese AI rivals are now formidable. The question is, are US export restrictions aiding China's rise in AI? That's the one thing that needs to be seen. Because what Nvidia CEO and boss is telling is indicating that the chip war that started between the two sides is not having the desired consequences. He's saying that they are having, in fact, the opposite of their intended effect, with American companies effectively locked out of the largest market that exists. That is the Chinese market, the world's largest for chips. Nvidia now expects to lose up to $8 billion in sales this quarter alone. In fact, the company's earnings call, CEO Hensen Huang said that Chinese tech firms are quickly stepping in to fill the gap, and their AI capabilities are growing stronger rather than slowing down. China's AI development, he argued, the policies are simply pushing customers towards alternatives like Huawei. And now the big question is, as Trump doubles down on tough tech restrictions, is his policy actually helping China's AI industry gain ground? At the end of the day, the last couple of years, there's been this big chip war between US and China. Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, also came down with heavy, significant restrictions so that China doesn't climb the AI ladder. But guess what? It seems to have done so. Ankush Sabharwal, who is the founder and CEO of Bharat Gupt AI, joins me, and I want to ask from him, Ankush, the question one asks is very simple. Whatever happened to the chip war and the restrictions that US had put in on China to ensure that it doesn't climb up the chip ladder, doesn't climb up the AI ladder? How do you see China and its AI capabilities growing? And the fact that you have Nvidia CEO pointing that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me here. So it's a macro level. It looks like the sovereign AI, the sovereignty is important for every country. I think US wants that, and probably China also wants. And see, we are in India, and India also is now very vocal, and a lot of good steps are being taken to have our own sovereign AI. As you know, MIT is focusing on having sovereign AI LLMs and the applications around it. So now this is a little bigger on the chip because most of us are dependent. Most of us here, I see when I'm talking about us, means the whole world is literally dependent upon NVIDIA chips. And yes, I think there can be maybe some ego clashes, or maybe for the self national interests. Considering those, I think those export bans are happening. But I think we in India should also take the lesson. It can happen any moment to us. And instead of just being, besides being focusing on LLMs, we should also now have our own sovereign AI chips. I know Ministry of IT is working on it, but I think there should be equal enthusiasm and initiative by the industries to work on chips. Now, yes, we are dependent very heavily on NVIDIA chips, which is good. So far, no kind of ban on us. We have a good number of chips in India, but a lot more in demand. We need to have both the things in our mind to keep importing and also keep working on our own sovereign AI chips.
All right, let's leave it there, Ankush. Thanks much for joining us with that perspective. I'm now turning focus to the other big story that we are tracking, which is Donald Trump's war on Harvard. Let's now take a look at that big story, which is, well, at the end of the day, hundreds and thousands of students' lives, careers, futures are all at stake, and there is absolutely no clarity on what will be the next steps as far as the Trump versus Harvard saga is concerned. NDTV is on ground. We have Natasha Israni talking to students at the campus. Remember, the mood is somber, coinciding with graduation ceremonies, which is deeply ironical. I'm going to first play out this soundbite of Donald Trump, and then I'm going to come back and, in fact, try and play out this short discussion that Natasha had with several students on the campus. Listen in.
So why would 31%, why would a number so big? I think, number one, I think they should have a cap of maybe around 15%, not 31%. We have people who want to go to Harvard and other schools. They can't get in because we have foreign students there. But I want to make sure that the foreign students are people that can love our country. We don't want to see shopping centers exploding. We don't want to see the kind of riots that you had.
International student visas have now been stalled, put on pause for at the moment in terms of interviews, new interviews. That was a recent announcement by the Trump administration. I'm just curious to ask Uzma, you know, you're here, you finished your 1 year here as an international student. What has your experience been like?
Well, I think as an international student, and I'm from India, it's been really transformative. Harvard is a place where you just feel so welcomed. It is the diversity and how you just, your perspective, interacting with the, students coming from different countries. We are represented by more than 100 countries here.
Sharifa Shahai, sorry about that. Sharifa Shahai to my right, who was going to be graduating from GSAS as a graduate school of arts and sciences in quantitative biology. When it comes to freedom of speech, you are an American student here. Do you think that Harvard has been able to protect that freedom of speech?
I think Harvard in general is a place that you can express your opinions pretty freely. There's people from a wide variety of walks of life, countries, regions. So I think there's people here from every spectrum, and they're all welcome to voice their opinion. I think some opinions definitely have been more difficult to voice here, but I don't think that it's unwelcoming to any one group.
All right, in northern Arkansas, well, a massive manhunt is underway for escaped convict Grant Hardin, a former police chief serving time for murder and rape. He's nicknamed the devil in the Ozarks. In fact, Hardin slipped out of a medium security prison, and he's disguised in a fake law enforcement uniform. Authorities admit that there was a lapse in protocol that allowed him to walk free. Search teams are now combing the entire region. Rugged terrain caves, abandoned structures in one of the state's most cavernous regions. Locals have said that Hardin is smart and resourceful and, well, he knows the area very well. FBI and state police have joined the hunt to capture the fugitive who was once a police chief and is now on the run. And finally, they say actions speak louder than words, unless you're on Wall Street, where words move markets and tweets tilt portfolios. In the latest twist of the tariff tango, investors are coining a new term, Taco Trump, always chickening out. It's a spicy new acronym sizzling through trading desks, served up with a side of skepticism and extra chili sauce. Well, when asked about it, President Trump called it the nastiest question, insisting his tariff threats are just tough talk. A classic case of all talk and no action. Critics say he's all hat and no cattle, while Trump insists it's just the art of the deal. Turned up to 11, but on Wall Street, traders aren't losing sleep. They've learned to ride the wave, dodge the drama and keep a taco in hand and a sell order in the other. For now, the only thing more predictable than a tariff threat is the walk back, and that's the way the market crumbles, viewers.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number.
All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Global. Thanks so very much for watching. On the other side of the break, we come back with an NDTV World special show, Fault Lines, where we decode Russia-Ukraine war. Stay with us.